Welcome, everyone, to this episode of the Tiny Fit Diva podcast. I'm really excited to have Rachael Pontillo here today with us, and we're going to talk all about skincare. So, Rachael, thank you so much for being here today, and I'm going to give everybody a short intro just so they know where you're coming from.
Thanks.
Rachael Pontillo is a holistic skincare innovator, author, and educator. She is the best-selling author of the book Love Your Skin, Love Yourself, and co-author of The Sauce Code. She's an AADP and IAHC board-certified international health coach, licensed esthetician, and natural skincare formulator and educator. She's the president and co-founder of the Nutritional Aesthetics Alliance, the creator of the popular skincare and healthy lifestyle blog, Holistically Hoped. Is that how you pronounce that?
Yeah, you're like the only one who did that right.
Woo-hoo!
Good job.
All right. As well as the much-loved online course, Create Your Skincare. She is an avid herbalist, self-professed skincare ingredient junkie, and lifelong learner. All right. So thank you so much for being here, Rachael. I'm glad I pronounced everything okay.
You did, yes. Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited to talk about skincare. As I was mentioning before we got on the recording, I'm launching a program with the app Suggestic, and it's going to be something that people can have on their phone to work on healing their gut with the focus of clearing up their skin. Because you know, as I've worked with a lot of my clients focusing on gut health, it's just a wonderfully happy side effect that they get better, clearer skin. And so I'm really excited to learn from other professionals and, kind of glean from your experience and ask you some questions today and let our listeners get some fun tips as well. So before we do that, can you sort of share your story? Where are you from? How did you get into skincare? What's your history?
Sure. I'll try to give you the nutshell version. I live in the Philadelphia area now. I'm originally from northern New Jersey, just outside of New York City. And I got into skincare out of necessity because I unfortunately did not get blessed with fantastic skincare genes from either of my parents. I started getting my first blemishes around age 10, 5th grade.
Wow.
Yeah, that wasn't fun. And then I started, it just got worse as things progressed. And my mother didn't quite know what to do with me because she's very holistically minded herself. We always had a massive garden. She always grew herbs. She would make me some concoctions here and there. Some of them worked a little bit. Some of them didn't. A lot of them didn't. Some of them were not anything that I would ever recommend to anyone. And I always bust on her for this. and actually, I think later on we're going to talk about some common DIY remedies you see online and which ones are a good idea and which ones are not. There's one specific one that's not a good idea that I'm going to tell you about. So hang on for that. But my mother always kind of had the idea that anything you can make yourself is better than anything you can buy, no matter what, whether it's a cost thing or a quality thing. So I grew up with that mentality in my head. So whenever we had a problem, our first thing to do was to try to make something to fix it, whether it was food, like she's big on soups and teas, or if it was like some sort of a topical concoction. And then, if that didn't work, we didn't really have access to any holistic anything where I lived. I think there was like one health food store 20 minutes away, and it was like the size of my closet. There was no Whole Foods. So I'd go to the dermatologist or the pediatrician at first. Went to the pediatrician at first. They gave me topical antibiotics, which stung my skin and hurt a lot and did not actually help. It actually just made things drier, but not clearer. But because that's what the doctor told me to do, and my mother's like, oh, you got to follow the doctor's orders, I kept using it. And I remember almost like crying, putting this topical erythromycin on my skin every day. And I did that for about a year. And finally, I'm like, this is not working. That's just one of the things that didn't work. I also remember trying some of the over-the-counter benzoyl peroxide-based things, the little creams and the wipes and whatnot. And my face would become raw looking from that too. I remember, this is funny. So they had a tinted one, like a little tinted acne cream. and it had benzoyl peroxide in it, but my face was bad. So, those things are supposed to be little spot treatments, right? And it was tinted. So I'm like, oh, this is like concealer. But my face was all broken out. So I'm like, I'm just going to put on like a foundation. And I didn't know anything about allergies or irritant reactions. Well, suffice it to say, after just one day of wearing a face full of benzoyl peroxide, I think those products are like 10% benzoyl peroxide. My face was bright red. It was swollen. It was itchy. The blemishes were just, I don't even want to describe them to gross your audience out, but it was a bad situation.
Oh, and how old were you when you were using this?
Like maybe 13.
Oh.
Yeah. So finally my mother's like, no more medicine. You're just going to deal with this. So I was still using products from the drugstore because back then we had teen magazines and sometimes TV commercials. And then, whenever you'd go to the store with your girlfriends, whatever fancy thing was on the end cap display, that's what you'd buy. So there was a lot of those toners that were very strong alcohol toners that they told you in like the commercials, you keep wiping until you don't see any dirt anymore. And I didn't know back then that the cause of acne is actually not dirt and it's actually not oil. So I walked around with what I like to call raw steak syndrome on my face, but the acne was still there. So I spent a lot of time being really unhappy with my appearance, not just physically, but when I would look in the mirror and not love what I saw looking back, and I would feel like people were staring at me all the time. It really took a toll emotionally as well. So I then went to the dermatologist when I was about 15 because I had, in addition to the acne, I got this unexplained just rash all over my face. And my mother was with me. The dermatologist took one look at me, was like, sat me down. He's like, lay back, close your eyes. Told me nothing about what was happening. All of a sudden, starts giving me injections of cortisone in my face. 11 of them. Wow. My mother almost passed out because he didn't tell her what he was going to do either. And he's like, that should do the trick in a couple of days. And I was like in shock. I was so traumatized. And look, I know we have colleagues who are dermatologists, and I know that there are great dermatologists out there. This one wasn't one of those. So, long story short, it was a very long struggle. I tried everything. I tried the natural remedies. I tried professional products later on when I went back to school for aesthetics. I tried mixing my own things. It wasn't until I figured out topically what my skin did need, which ended up being all natural, non-toxic, handmade custom products. But that only worked because I was able to straighten out what was going on the inside. Because even though my mother always cooked meals at home when we were kids, she was still following the standard American diet type meals, which I think we can agree most people don't really benefit from. Otherwise, you and I really wouldn't have the careers that we have.
We wouldn't be in business.
We would not be in business, nor would our hundreds and thousands of colleagues. So even though it was home cooked food, which again is better than anything that you can buy at a restaurant, anytime, I always believe that, it was still a lot of gluten and dairy, the wrong kinds of fat. She did cook with things like Crisco because that's what women cook. That's what they cooked with that.
We were told that it was healthy.
That's right. So
they're doing their best.
They did. So it wasn't until I was older that I fixed my diet, but I didn't fix my diet at first to heal my skin. I had gotten to a point of acceptance with the skin that this is just how it's going to be. And I got really good at covering it. And I did find topical products that would handle the symptoms, the visible aspect of it. But if I would run out of a product, it would just keep coming back. So I gained a significant amount of weight after my second pregnancy. And it wasn't until I really didn't like how I looked in the mirror, to the point where I didn't even recognize myself, that I'm like, okay, it's just time to make changes. So I got my hands on a plant-based diet book that also talked about things like food combining and probiotics and elimination diets. And I'm like, this sounds ridiculous, but you know what? I've tried everything. Nothing's worked. So Just in the first month of very simple changes of just adding things like lemon water to my diet, green smoothies, taking a probiotic, taking a digestive enzyme, really thinking about the quality of the meat. If I was buying meat, like making sure it was not factory, but it was pastured and organic, and cutting out dairy and gluten and sugar, which I call that the skin trigger trifecta in my book. And people get mad at me when I tell them to cut those things, but honestly, you don't miss it after very long.
You don't.
You really
And I'm
don't.
so glad you said that, because those are the 3 things we work on eliminating in my program. Yeah.
Perfect. I love it. It's really important because and it's hard for people to understand that, because gluten and dairy, think about that. That's 2 food groups. That's 2 food groups, though, that the government has told us for how many years we're supposed to have dairy. We're supposed to have
heart healthy, good for your bones, right? Yeah.
Grain. Most people don't do well with those. It's just how it is. And even if they do well with them, because our lovely food system has ruined them with chemicals, most people can't handle them now. So there's a lot of reasons for that I do go into my book, Love Your Skin, Love Yourself, about, and also in my program. But all of these things that I did internally is what made the skin clear up radically and quickly, to the point where I was actually able to get off of the so-called acne product. I didn't have to use any active ingredients for acne anymore. Even though I stopped using medicines, because after the erythromycin, after the cortisone, I still tried a couple other dermatological things like retinols and stuff. I had disastrous effects, and I really was, I started looking older, which is, it's like a big side effect of these acne medicines, is that they're so harsh and they're so damaging to the long-term health of the skin that they actually prematurely age the skin. And also, by stripping out the oils in your skin is part of what keeps it youthful looking. In addition to the proteins below the surface, the collagen and the elastin, and the pigment cells, the melanin, that those oils are there to help protect. So when the skin's working so hard to help reduce the inflammation that these topical medicines cause, it's doing so at the cost of those more delicate cells below and those proteins below that are forming, because all of the nutrition that those proteins need to form are being sucked up by the epidermis to try to like calm down the inflammation. And that's why we end up with prematurely aged skin after years and years and years of being on acne products. So it ends up being like, okay, I got results with this, but ooh, now I've got to worry about hyperpigmentation and fine lines and wrinkles. And I do have some hyperpigmentation on my cheeks that came from stuff that I did to my skin, which I don't mind it, actually. It's funny, I've gotten some clients who have dark spots here and there, and I always liked freckles. I had friends when I was a kid who had freckles, and I wanted them, and I never had them. So now these are my freckles.
It worked out. That's funny.
It did.
I was going to ask, do you have any scarring from so many years of treatment?
That's a really good question. The answer is I used to.
Really? Okay. So you were, because I was going to say, video is sometimes hard, but you look like you have very smooth, very clear, not a lot of scarring.
Thank you. And yes, I can even,
yeah.
the scarring,
yeah.
I mean, it's really, my skin is quite remarkable considering everything that it's been through. And I am 41 years old, which a lot of people don't believe, which
I was going to say, I would not have guessed that.
And I have not, and if anybody's asking, I do not do microdermabrasion. I do not do chemical peels. I do not do injectables. I do not do anything beyond a daily skincare regimen. And then I do get regular facials, holistic facials, though nothing invasive. It's just not my philosophy. I believe that a lot of those treatments do more harm in the long run than good. Yeah. And I also think that people can get addicted to them. So back to the scarring. The reason I brought all of that up is because a lot of the aesthetic treatments that I mentioned, like microdermabrasion and chemical peels, are intended to reduce the appearance of scarring. For most people, that doesn't actually happen because the damage happens lower than the epidermis. So as those cells continue to rise to the surface, the scarring is still going to be there, unless if you get those treatments all the time, you won't see it. But what you're seeing, the smoothness you're seeing, is actually swelling. It's not healthy skin. And then if you stop getting those treatments, then the scarring is going to come out. And scarring does become more pronounced as we age because of the depletion of the collagen and elastin. So for me, diet is what plumps the skin up from the inside. Those cells are made on the inside of the body. They're supported and protected on the outside with your topical products. That's why topical products are so important. But on the inside, it is so important to make sure you're getting a correct balance of hydration, healthy fats. The healthy fats are what seal that hydration in and prevent it from seeping out of the cells so that they can form healthy. And by the time they raise to the surface, they're intact and they're able to fully function. And it's really essential that we protect the collagen and elastin and things that we can add to our diets, like bone broth, or even if you're not doing like a traditional bone broth, even if you're having just like chicken soup when you're eating
with pasture raised chickens.
With pasture raised chickens, talking about healthy fats again. If you are a butter eater, having grass-fed cultured butter is something I recommend, or ghee. Ghee is a really great version for people who have a casein allergy, because the casein, which is the proteins in the cow milk they're actually removed from the ghee. So all you're left with is that healthy fat.
And even if you don't have a reaction, ghee is so amazing. We started eating that recently just to try it. We're like, my gosh, if you don't like vegetables, just melt a bunch of ghee on top of them. You will devour them.
I mean, no, ghee, I don't hear of too many people reacting to ghee, honestly. Yeah. I don't. So ghee is another thing, but also I don't eat seafood. It's like, I know there's healthy seafood out there. It's just a preference thing. We have an agreement. I don't eat the fish when I go swimming, or they don't eat me when I go swimming. I don't eat them. We've been fine since we've had that agreement. So, if I go in the ocean and something else happens, maybe I'll change my mind. But I don't eat seafood. So, omega-3 supplements, there are plant-based ones. There are nuts, seeds that you can eat. Certain dark leafy greens have essential fatty acids in them. Yes, you have to eat a lot of them to get that, but that's okay. We should be eating a lot of greens anyway. So just having a really healthy, balanced diet of things that you like, in functional nutrition, and even in standard health coaching, if we're doing a challenge or an elimination diet or something, it can be really easy to focus on foods that we're not supposed to have. But if you focus on just having more of the foods that you can have, that you love, that's a really good way to do it and keep it balanced and keep it fun and interesting for yourself. So I really believe that it was my dietary changes that eliminated the appearance of the scarring, truly. And even when estheticians look at my face under the magnification lamp, they even say, this is remarkable. Like, yeah, you can see some unevenness just in pigmentation from the scarring, but texture wise, it is so smooth. So anyone who's struggling with acne scarring, what I want you to think about is not making it worse on the outside. So anything that you're doing on the outside, keep it gentle and keep it natural, because a lot of the chemically based products on the market, the synthetic chemicals, I should specify, they're really irritant to the skin. And whenever you're adding irritation to the skin, it's going to make those immune cells just overwork and suck more nutrients from the dermis, which is the deeper layer that topical products really shouldn't be affecting, because then it becomes a drug, not a cosmetic. But diet-wise, those cells they get their nutrient from inside. So really, I cannot stress the importance of a healthy diet. Healthy fats, hydration. So lots of fruits and vegetables, drink lots of water, and then antioxidants, which you don't have to take a fancy supplement for antioxidants. Just eat them. Just eat plants. Eat plants.
Yeah, right. Eat a pint of raspberries a day or something. Yeah, that's what I like to recommend, because they're so, people get worried sometimes about too much sugar, too much fruit.
Right.
I don't really like to worry about that, but if you are worried about it, eat a couple berries. You're good. It's low sugar. It's high in everything else that you want, and it's delicious. And you can add.
Yeah. And, we talked about cutting sugar, and when I'm saying that, I'm talking about refined sugar.
Right.
Don't eat the white stuff, even like the raw stuff. Don't have that. but sugars that are found naturally in fruits and vegetables.
They come with all the extra fiber and
that's
minerals
right.
and
It
vitamins.
helps it go where it needs to go in the body. It's not the same reaction. I will never tell anyone to not eat fruit unless it's something you're sensitive to. Then don't eat that.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
In general, if you're cutting sugar, please don't cut fruit. Just make sure you're eating fruits that also have a lot of fiber in them.
Yeah.
And it's just have.
Well, like you said, it's tricky. It's very, very easy to go like super hardcore elimination and be like, I'm going to get rid of this and I'm going to focus on this. And we get very stuck. And then all of a sudden our diets are super limited. And I think really what people need to focus on is just real food. And then you don't have to focus on, I'm not eating carbs or I'm not eating sugars. Like,
and focus on how you're feeling when you eat it.
Yes,
exactly. Let your body tell you, because your body changes. I do food sensitivity testing. I do it on myself and I offer it to my clients. It's expensive. And you get your results, you get this little card that tells you, okay, these are the foods that, when you're out, don't eat these. Okay, great. So then you take the test again in 6 months and you get a whole nother list because your body changes. Your body heals certain things. Based on exposure, it might develop other things. That doesn't mean don't do it. If if you have the means to do it, then do it, because you'll feel great all the time if you can do it that way. But if food sensitivity testing is not something that is practical for you on a regular basis, your body will tell you if it likes a food or not. You just have to listen to it. And that can mean fatigue. It can mean crankiness. You might feel bloated, or your skin will tell you because it will break out. It will show you a rash. You might get a flare of rosacea. You might get a flare of melasma. You might get puffiness around the eyes. I personally, when my skin doesn't like something that I put on it either topically or that I've taken internally, I get a massive rash around my eyes and on my neck. And that's how I know. And that can happen even with something healthy. So just listen to your body.
Yeah, 100%. And then be willing to go through the reintroduction process a little bit too. So just personal example, I was so hardcore for like a year on my food sensitivities because I was dealing with a lot of other things that I wanted to focus on with my gut. And so I was like, oh, I just don't want to bring anything back in and think about 10 things at once. I just want to give my body a break. So I was just really, really strict about it for a while. And then in the past couple months, I started bringing things back in, and I'm so excited because I just made pumpkin spice paleo muffins at my house, and pumpkin last year made me like really gassy.
Yeah. Pumpkin's one of my current ones, but I'm actually okay with that because I'm not a pumpkin person. But
oh no, I'm having zero reaction, so I'm super excited that I can have a pumpkin spice muffin.
Oh, good. That's good news. But that's the thing. You're supposed to be able to bring it back in stuff.
Yeah, exactly. You gotta, and sometimes your body just wants to cycle through things, and again, it's like that. Don't focus on 3 foods; you'll become sensitive to all of them.
That's true. You want to have a variety of different things in your diet. That's really the most important thing, because either your body will become so reliant on those 3 foods that it won't want anything else, or it will become sensitive to those 3 foods.
Right. Yeah.
And then you won't know what to do, and then you'll freak out, and
then it just becomes frustrating. Yeah.
That whole feeling of I don't know what to eat. That's really hard.
It is.
It's really hard, especially when you are someone who understands the connection between what you put into your body, what you see on your skin, or how you express your health. It really is hard when you want to do the right thing and your body's telling you, no, I don't like it. I don't like it. It's like, well, what do I do now? Yeah. So it's really important to just be open to those reintroductions and have a lot of variety.
Yeah. So let's talk, you've touched on it a little bit in terms of how important food is. What do you think are the top underlying causes of acne? Because really that's what we're trying to focus on here is the underlying cause, as opposed to a lot of people focus on the external, like you talked about, creams and lotions and shots in your face and all this crazy, and peels and all these things. And that's really just addressing the symptom. It's not addressing why the acne is happening in the first place, or why the rosacea or the redness. So what are, in your opinion, the top reasons, the underlying causes?
Okay, well, we already mentioned food, because if you're putting the wrong foods in and your cells are not able to be produced optimally with optimal function, and your microbiome is a mess because you're not feeding it, you're going to have issues. So not everyone gets acne. Not everyone gets skin conditions. I'm sure you've seen those people those high school girls who eat crap and drink soda, and yet their skin is like, oh, it's perfect.
Right.
Well, that happens sometimes. Sometimes the genetics outweigh the epigenetics for a while, but then you look at those girls in like 20 years and you're like, oh.
Yeah.
Time has not been good to you, honey. So
yep.
have faith that, we go through stages in life where sometimes we're all cute and other times we're not. But we have to love ourselves through all of it. But definitely food and food sensitivities, but also having the right nutrients in your body, not having processed food and synthetic chemicals in your body internally. Because if acne is going to happen, acne itself is a bacteria, but it's a bacteria that the microbiome itself should be able to handle. If the microbiome cannot handle the P. acnes bacteria, it's because there's some sort of an imbalance there, some sort of a dysbiosis, either on the surface or in the gut or both.
So, I mean, in that, just using that as an example, that's one reason some people may have crazy acne and other people might end up with candida, because if you have the dysbiosis in your gut, you may have, a predisposition to go one way or the other. And
that's true.
We all have slightly different microbiomes.
Yeah.
So what becomes opportunistic is different in one person than in another. But
absolutely.
Yeah, but when you're feeding the wrong stuff, ultimately down the line, it's something bad's going to happen.
Absolutely.
It's not going to feel good.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And, candida and dysbiosis in general is another cause. And, it is linked to diet, but it's also linked to heavy metal toxicity that you might have from getting vaccines when you were a kid, or the water supply in your house. It might be linked to stress. I mean, nothing kills a good microbiome like good old-fashioned stress from, emotional stress, oxidative stress in the body, not getting enough sleep, all of these different lifestyle things that fall under the category of stress. Stress itself will kill microbes that are supposed to be there to help you. So stress is a giant cause of acne and other skin issues. Typically people, this is not news. This is not breaking news. Like, how many times do you have a really important job interview and you wake up with a gigantic zit on your face the morning of? Or how many stories have you heard of people who have big pimples on their wedding days? It happens.
Right. Oh, it's the worst.
It is, but it's because of the stress. And it's just, the skin is often the last to receive the nutrients, but it's the first to tell you, hello, something's going on. You're not paying attention. I've said this before also, that, we as a society have become accustomed to accepting internal symptoms as normal. So chronic fatigue, bloating, just kind of low energy, mood swings. Unfortunately, these have just kind of become a product of a stressful life that we all tend to live in these days, and we don't really think of it as something is wrong. And we've become very disconnected from our bodies as a whole too. Yeah. So if we're not feeling okay, something's going on inside that I don't know what it is, but I need to change something, your skin will tell you, and you cannot ignore it, because it's going to be like right there. Be like, hi, here I am.
I'm ruining all your pictures.
We're going to ruin all your pictures. You're going to have to go and, you're going to have to do like emergency spot removal here and Photoshop and all of that. So definitely stress. So we talked about nutrition or lack of nutrition. We talked about stress. The microbiome's kind of like the blanket over all of that unites it. And then I'm also going to say using the wrong topical products. It really can, like you said, feeding the wrong microbes. There are a lot of microbes that are opportunistic that live on the surface of the skin. But if they become overactive, like staph is a really good example. Staph is known typically on the microbiome as a commensal bacteria, meaning it's perfectly fine. It doesn't bother anybody. But then, if you feed it too much of the wrong thing, and then there is a break in the skin somewhere, whether you are itchy and you've scratched it and it can get in, then you're going to wind up with a big old staph infection. But when it's just like kind of do on the outside and playing nicely with its friends and not being overfed, it doesn't cause a problem. And there's a lot of microbes like that. You know, we talk about the microbiome, then there's studies on the microbiome with viruses now and fungi. You know, there are beneficial yeasts. They're not all bad. It's not all candida. But because the microbiome on the inside and the outside is connected, we have to feed it properly on the outside as much as we have to feed it properly on the inside. So the food that we eat, the water that we take in, hits the skin last. It goes first to nourish and hydrate all of the internal organs, and the skin gets like the leftovers. So we do need to feed the skin on the outside too. And when we say feed the skin, we are essentially feeding our skin's microbiome. And we do know that a large percentage of what we apply topically does get absorbed into the skin. The exact percentage is going to vary depending on the person, depending on what the substance is that we're talking about, whether it is an oil or some sort of extract or some sort of, you know, fancy active ingredient that's been formulated to penetrate. Doesn't that sound disgusting anyway? I don't want anything penetrating my skin. Seriously, it's like the idea, whenever I see that at trade shows, I'm like, ooh.
Yeah.
I just don't like that visual.
Sounds harsh.
But, it is harsh, and that's, you know, that's another thing. But if you're feeding the microbiome with the wrong types of things and allowing for dysbiosis to occur, meaning I don't want to say the bad ones, because they're not all bad. They just
the
have
opportunistic ones. Yeah.
The opportunistic ones. If they kind of take over, then we have a problem. But in addition to that, if you are compromising your skin topically by using ingredients that are either toxic, of which there are many, irritant or allergenic, of which there are many, or just ingredients that your skin just doesn't like, and there are signs, there might be redness, there might be itchiness, but you're like, no, this was supposed to be good for my skin, I'm going to keep using it. Or if you're still of that mentality that, you know, if it stings, that's how you know it's working. No, that's how you know there's a problem. That's not supposed to happen. But if you keep doing that, your skin's going to react. And breakouts are one way that it reacts. So there are so many more other causes, but I think those really are the main three that I see.
Big needle movers there.
I think so. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, there's just still so much research coming out about the microbiome itself and about nutrients and, you know, what ingredients certain people need for certain things. So it's an exciting thing to just watch, because new information is coming out every time I go to a conference. I learn something new.
Yeah.
So
it's awesome. I feel like, you know, in 10, 20, 30 years, we're going to have individualized probiotic protocols for people.
It's already starting to happen.
Yeah. Whether it be on your skin or whether it be taking it internally or whatever, I feel like you're going to be able to analyze where your microbiome's at, figure out what bugs you need more of, figure out what prebiotics you need to feed those bugs, and then boom, that's your own individual, you know, protocol.
I actually am working with a genomics company that has a test that helps you see exactly what nutrients you're genetically predisposed to needing and what probiotic strains are going to be most beneficial for you. So that's already happening.
That's so cool.
And we're already we're starting to apply that to the skin as well. We're starting to see more of a super bio-individual approach, looking at people's DNA, looking at people's ancestry. That's one of the ways I teach my people to choose ingredients in my course is looking at people's genetics and looking at people's lifestyles, looking at people's ancestry, looking at people's functional deficiencies. There's all sorts of ways we can customize protocols for people topically as well as internally. And it's just going to continue to advance the more information we have and the more tests we have.
That's very cool. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of tests. Test, don't guess whenever you can. I mean, like you said earlier, it does get expensive, and there's a lot that we can do without it.
And the science changes. The science does change, so our understanding has to change too.
Mm-hmm.
But with testing, I think it's just really neat to have something visual to look at, because there can be a lot of guesswork otherwise. And look, if money is an issue and testing's not an option for people, do the guesswork.
Right.
And work with a professional who can help you through that, because it will cut your guesswork.
Yeah.
But
exactly.
if it is feasible to you, the testing can really speed up that process for you.
Yeah. So what I saw on your website, you have 10 questions to ask about your skincare brand. Can you share maybe one or two of those? What are some main things you should look out for? Maybe people can go right now into their medicine cabinet and take a look.
So that's really pertaining to natural skincare products on the market, because unfortunately a lot of the natural skincare products that are labeled as natural or organic are really not.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's at rachaelpontillo.com, and that's a free checklist that anyone can download if they would like to. Basically, I want you to take your quote unquote natural skincare product. If you don't have natural skincare, you can look too. It's going to be a lot easier, because I can guarantee you that product's not going to have any of these things. But you're going to want to look at what ingredients are on the label. Not all synthetic ingredients are bad per se. Some of them are, I like to call them inert, meaning they don't really do any good. They're there to serve a function, but they're not going to bother the skin. They're not going to benefit the skin. They're just there to make the product, like to hold it together and make it spread nicely and keep it stable and all of that. But really with natural products, the biggest thing I see that's a problem is that when you have a lot of herbal extracts, but the thing says it has no preservatives. If you're going to put a jar of, a bowl of tomatoes or a bottle of tomatoes out like in a humid room, like a bathroom, for 6 months, what's going to happen?
Yeah.
It's going to go bad.
Yeah.
Mold, bacteria, yeast.
Yeah. Everything we don't want. We just talked
everything
about.
we don't want. And sure, you could can it and, store it for a certain period of time that way. But when you're canning something, you're not opening and closing it. You're not pumping it and adding air into it. As soon as something comes into contact with air or moisture, it requires a preservative if it's a product that includes living matter or water of any kind. So if you have a product, a cream or a lotion or a gel or something that's water-based that has herbal extracts in it, but it doesn't have a preservative, there's a very good chance that the extracts themselves are preserved, but you'll never know that as the consumer because people are not required to disclose that on the label. Anything that comprises a raw material itself is not required to be on the label itself. Now I encourage my students to formulate or to label their products honestly, because it's these little percentages of these tiny ingredients that can actually cause problem for people after repeated use. And we see this so much with chemicals like parabens, like BPA, like certain formaldehyde releasing agents that are used as preservatives and stabilizers and other types of products. They stay in the body. Some of them have a half-life. Some of them have this bioaccumulative nature to them where it might not, a single dose of a tiny amount might not bother you, but repeatedly, in addition to everything else that you're already exposed to, it's just going to cause body burden. So if you are truly interested in having a product that's all natural and you're seeing a bunch of extracts and it has water or it has aloe or it has glycerin, these are all water containing aqueous ingredients that require a preservative, and you're not seeing a preservative, I would say call the company and ask them, how are you preserving this product? Because if they say, oh, it's preservative free, no, that either means that they're lying or that it's unsafe. Either or, that's not a company that I want to do business with. And I've actually had arguments at stores with companies who use claims like this. Another thing I would ask is, how are you sourcing your ingredients? One of the downsides of the focus of the herbal supplement industry and herbal skincare is that a lot of plants are becoming over-harvested. The essential oil industry as well. Plants are becoming over-harvested. I can't speak. Deforestation is happening. They're not being replanted at a rate that keeps up with the consumption. And unfortunately, we now have a lot of plants that have gone extinct or are endangered. So when we take from nature, it's very important that we do so respectfully and that we give back. So I only buy my ingredients from companies that I know harvest ethically and sustainably, or they grow it specifically for that purpose. It's cultivated organic herbs rather than going out into the wild and picking what happens to be there. So that's really important. And then the last thing I want to touch on is, we talked about preservatives. We talked about the ethical harvesting aspect of it. Fragrances. This is a big one. Anytime you see the word fragrance or parfum or perfume on a label, that means it's synthetic. Even if the word natural is before it, even if there's a plant name before it, even if it says something like lavender oil, that doesn't really mean anything. If a plant is on the label, it should be listed with the botanical name of the plant, and it should tell you what part's used. If you see something like lavender oil or rose oil and you open the thing and it smells like a lavender perfume and the fragrance stays with you for like the whole day or gives you a headache or makes you feel nauseous, that's synthetic. Natural aromas that are from like essential oils or absolutes or CO2 extracts or even just straight up herb infused oils or infusions, they don't stay. They evaporate and the scent is with you for a little while so you can enjoy it and then it's gone. If it's something that stays with you all day, it has some sort of a synthetic fixative in it. So the word natural fragrance, just like in food, the word natural flavor, it means a whole bunch of synthetic things. Maybe there's something that's sourced from a gland on an animal that nobody wants to know about or think about ever.
Beaver butt.
That we're going to eat. Yeah. Or rub on our skin.
Yep.
The perfume industry and the flavor industry are very similar in that way. And, there could be anywhere up to 900 individual synthetic chemicals that make up a single fragrance. You're never going to see that on a label for two reasons. Number one, it would be a long label. And number two, they're protected by trade secret.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Oh, sorry.
No, I was going to say, if that word fragrance, or if you see a plant without a botanical name on there, I would call the company and say, what is this? Because there are too many companies that call themselves natural these days that are still using ingredients that someone who really is into natural stuff is not going to want to use.
Yeah. So you really focus on teaching people how to create their own. And that's pretty awesome. You said you have a course online where you can learn how to do that for your individual skin needs.
Yes.
So where do they go for that, first of all?
So you can go to createyourskincare.com for that. And I have two options for you. If you are someone who is just looking to make products that are customized to your skin, or you're someone in your family or a friend, and you're looking to do it in a natural way, you're looking to learn about how to choose ingredients for your own custom skincare needs and adjust those products as the seasons change, as you age, all of that. And also, if you do want to learn a little bit about the natural preservation and emulsifying and making creams and lotions and stuff like that in a way that would still be considered natural, createyourskincare.com has a personal edition, which is available year-round. Check that out. There's a couple of free classes on there that you can take to kind of get a sample. And then if you are a professional, if you're a skincare professional, meaning an esthetician or a cosmetologist or even a dermatologist, I do have some dermatologists who have taken my course who are interested in offering a signature line to their clients and their patients. Or if you're a health coach, a nutritionist, herbalist, aromatherapist, anyone who would work with a skincare client where it would make sense for you to offer a custom skincare option for them or have a signature skincare line in your business, I have a professional edition that is available several times a year that I actually teach live over a 4-month time frame. So a couple of options for you there.
That's awesome. So let's talk about some actual ingredients. We kind of hinted at this at the beginning.
We did.
Everyone can kind of go online and we'll read magazines and we'll see all these, DIY home mixes. So I wanted to ask you about a couple ingredients, if they are actually good or not, because we hear a lot of times that they are. So, okay, let's start with, well, actually one thing that came up while you were talking, it made me curious, like essential oils on your skin.
Mm-hmm.
Now, my impression, my initial thought would be, one, not directly, and two, it depends on the oil.
Yes and yes. And thank you for saying that. This is something that I'm really trying to educate about, is that even though there are a lot of essential oil companies out there now that say that it's safe to apply them directly to the skin if they're super pure and all of that, or a certain grade, any real aromatherapist or herbalist would tell you, no, don't do that. There's a lot of reasons why not to do that, but overall it could cause systemic sensitization. It might not happen right away, but it could happen over time, where your body will then reject any phytochemical ever that it comes into contact with that was in that oil. So you could be using some essential oil regularly and have a reaction to it, and then 10 years down the road have a reaction to a potato that happens to share some of the same properties.
Yeah, no
fun.
Necessarily
make that connection. So what I recommend is dilution. If you're using essential oils, absolutely get the best quality that you can find. Look for purity and look for quality. Those are two different things. But dilute. Unless you're a trained herbalist or aromatherapist, I do not recommend using more than 2% concentration on the skin. Sometimes for like a massage oil that's not going to be on the face, you could use up to like a 3%. If you're using something that's going to be around the eyes, I actually recommend leaving the oils out completely.
Yeah. Okay, what about honey? That's often used in masks and lotions and things that we're just told it's just magic for your skin. Is it?
I think it is when it's used appropriately, and I would say that raw honey is going to be your best bet, a raw local honey. Your little honey bear honey that's been pasteurized is still going to have some natural sugars that can be beneficial. It's still going to be super hydrating, but it's not going to have all of those beautiful anti-inflammatory properties, antioxidants, and enzymes, which really help to just bring nourishment into the skin. The microbiome actually just loves it. It's like, ooh, fun. But it's super hydrating. And then the natural sugars and enzymes actually help to exfoliate the skin without causing irritation and while still bringing hydration in. So I'm a big fan of using raw honey as a cleanser, also as a mask, or as a gentle exfoliation treatment. If you put it on, leave it on for like 5 minutes until it starts to get tacky, and then just kind of do this motion wherever you might have clogging in your pores, and the stickiness will actually help to dislodge that debris from the pores.
Just sort of pat your skin a little bit.
Yeah, I like to kind of do it like playing a piano, like this, but very gently. You don't want to be like, you're not like one of those maestros that's like, you're just like a little kid who's taking piano lessons.
Nice. I like
not
that.
I
played piano for a long time, so I like that analogy.
There you go.
Yeah.
And then to reconstitute clay masks, I think honey is beautiful. The one thing I will say about honey, though, when it's mixed with other ingredients, it loses its self-preserving qualities. Because it is a strong humectant, it raises the water activity of the product, which means that it makes it more prone to microbial contamination. And
so make it when you're going to use it.
Make it when you're going to use it. If you're going to mix it with something else, the honey on its own is shelf stable like forever. They found honey in like old ancient Egyptian tombs that was still intact.
That's so cool.
It's an amazing ingredient. Just don't mix it with anything else.
Got it. All right. What about oatmeal? We hear a lot for sensitive skin that it's very soothing. It's very calming. I think that would be true for most people. Yeah.
So unless you have an allergy to oats, then you wouldn't use it. But colloidal oatmeal itself actually is FDA approved as an anti-inflammatory. So even the pharmaceutical industry has recognized the benefits of oatmeal for its anti-inflammatory benefits. So what I like about it, I like to use a powdered version of it in masks. I also recommend it in a soak. I'm sure everyone's been told, like, if you have chicken pox or if you have a sunburn, go soak in a nice cool oatmeal bath. And that's because it is really anti-inflammatory. It's going to help take down that inflammation. It's very cooling. But what's beautiful about it is that it's also what's called demulcent or mucilaginous, and it produces kind of like a slime that helps to bring even more hydration in the skin. So it's very, very hydrating. So if you're using it in a facial product, I have a lot of students who use it in cleansers and then also use it in masks. And then if you use it as like a bath soak, it's something that's going to be really hydrating and really soothing.
Nice. Okay. So far we're a win for all of these.
We
mostly.
are.
All right. What about chocolate?
That's like the most scandalous one, because I'm sure you've heard that chocolate causes acne, right? Well, internally, I will only say that it's not the chocolate itself that causes acne, it's the milk and the sugar that they add to it.
Sure, the garbage, yeah.
The garbage. Actual chocolate, cacao itself is really beneficial for the skin, both internally and topically, because it is extremely high in antioxidants. And it also does contain some natural lipids that would help those antioxidants absorb into the skin. So I recommend, I'm a big fan of like a chocolate mask, or adding raw cacao powder to a powdered mask and then reconstituting it with something like honey. That's nice. A beautiful treatment. So there's a lot you can do.
And then you can just lick it off your face so you're not.
Right? Sure.
You can have this
theoretically, you sure could.
Chocolate oatmeal honey, and you can just
no, but seriously,
make a little pudding out of it.
In all seriousness, I live not far from Hershey Park, and they have a spa that is like renowned for their chocolate treatments.
Oh, interesting.
So I'm a big fan of chocolate on the skin topically, and it's great, especially for, you know, if you're doing some sort of a Valentine's Day promotion. It's really a beautiful ingredient to use, but I would say just make sure it actually is chocolate and not
real chocolate.
Yeah, don't get the light brown stuff. Get the nice rich, you know, I stick with still the 70% or higher cacao concentration.
So sort of in that same vein, what about sugar? So a lot of people put sugar in scrubs.
Yes.
Say it's super beneficial for your skin, but other people may say, well, because it's not perfectly smooth, it can damage your skin.
Right.
So what do you think about that?
So that's a really great thing that you asked. So yes, the sugars, the sugar itself, sugar itself is where they derive glycolic acid from, which is an alpha hydroxy acid that's very, very strong, that's used in chemical exfoliation. So in addition to the mechanical exfoliation that you get from the scrubbing motion, the friction, it does have that chemical exfoliation as well. It's not as strong as a glycolic acid because that's been processed and concentrated and all that. But you can get a chemical and mechanical exfoliation from it. So I would say for the body, I love a sugar scrub. Skin on the body is thicker and less sensitive than the skin on the face. So it actually can be very good to do a nice sugar scrub on the body, and the sugar will dissolve, which is good. I actually prefer it to other granule type exfoliants because it does dissolve, like salt also dissolves. So it's not going to be rough for all that long. And if you blend it with some really beautiful oils, you can give yourself a nice treatment. But I don't like it on the face. I would rather see someone use honey than sugar, because you'll still get that gentle chemical exfoliation, but you will not get the friction.
Awesome. I love that. So you wanted to mention a couple things that maybe are popular or people think might be beneficial that are super not beneficial. So can you throw those out there that we can be wary of?
So as I mentioned when I was picking on my mom earlier, sorry, Mom, she used to mash up vitamins, like vitamin C, and mix it in a paste and like give it to me as a mask, because she's like, oh, vitamin C is good for everything. Well, vitamin C topically, even in cosmetics, is a really iffy ingredient because it's highly unstable. It's highly skin irritant. It oxidizes really quickly, which means that it's just more prone to cause irritation before it can benefit the skin. There have been multiple versions that have been formulated to help that from not happening, but then you're getting into a super processed ingredient that not everybody wants. The thing with supplements in general, whether it's vitamin C or any other dietary supplement, is that they have been designed to go through the digestive system. They have not been designed to be gentle enough for direct exposure to tissue. They're meant to be broken down by acids, and go through that whole system. So they're a little tougher, they're a little stronger, and they're meant to be delivered differently. There are transdermal supplements that we see a lot of now that are formulated for topical use, but I do not advise people to get like a beta carotene capsule and break it open and mix it with a mask, or mush up vitamin C. And don't do that. You're going to end up causing yourself a lot of irritation.
That's so interesting. I've never heard of that. But I do know there are a lot of products that are like, hey, this has vitamin C in it. It's for your face. So that makes sense. I'm glad you said that.
So yeah, and that sometimes can be a good thing, but for a lot of people and a lot of formulations, not, because the products that do have the types of vitamin C that have been formulated to penetrate and be less irritant, that's typically what you're going to see on the professional market. You're not going to see that at the drugstore. You're going to see the cheap old ascorbyl palmitate or ascorbic acid, which is not really
good.
No.
Okay, before we wrap up, I'm going to do some rapid fire with you.
What's
your daily skincare routine?
Okay, in the morning, I just splash water on my face, dry it off, spritz of rose water toner, and then a facial oil. That's it.
Fantastic.
At night, I remove any makeup with a facial oil. Then I shower. Then I get out of the shower, I spritz myself with the rose water, and then apply the oil, a different oil blend for nighttime.
Awesome.
So, yeah, I'm pretty simple with it.
Yeah.
I do sometimes, thanks. Yeah, I do sometimes use creams and lotions in the winter time when I want to add a little bit more hydration and another level or layer of moisture. I change up my regimen per season, but right now we're still kind of in warm weather mode. So I'm keeping it pretty simple.
Nice. What's your favorite way to relax?
Oh my goodness. Honestly, like, I'm going to sound like a big fat loser right now, snuggling on my couch with my cat watching a movie.
I am so with you. I have a little dog, and that's just the best. They're like the best cuddle buddies.
Yeah, like, I love my kids and everything, but they're older now. They're not as like squishy and cute. They're like gangly and big, and they'll still snuggle with me, but it's not like it was. So I'll go with the cat now.
I love it. What's your favorite sweet treat? We talked about nutrition a lot, so I like to ask this.
Well, I will be honest with you. I love chocolate. And I always do have a bar of like the good stuff, but I'm not going to lie. It's like my weakness that if I'm at Whole Foods and I'm like by their bakery, which I'm not supposed to be there, but they have these amazing chocolate chip scones that I'm like, okay, at least they're making it with real ingredients. So I'll treat myself to that every now and then.
Nice. Yeah, I love the Enjoy Life chocolate brand because it doesn't have dairy in it, and they have a dark chocolate bar that has 4 pieces on it, which is like perfect for me. I'll keep them in the fridge and I'll break one of it off. I just love that.
And that's the thing with dark chocolate is you don't need a lot to be satisfied.
And I remember thinking as a kid, I was like, Mom, you're crazy that you like dark chocolate. Milk chocolate's so much better. And here I am. I'm like, I love dark chocolate.
I know.
It's so good.
It is.
All right. So where can people find you, review your websites? Where can they buy your book, and any information you want on how people can connect with you?
Okay. So RachaelPontillo.com. It's RachaelPontillo.com. That's my main site where I have my blog, and it links to everything else. So if you are looking for someone to help you with your skin issues, or if you want to learn how to make skincare products, all that information is on the site. I have some online courses available. My books, Love Your Skin, Love Yourself, and The Sauce Code are both available on Amazon and Kindle. So yes, please buy the books and leave me a review if you buy the books. I am working on my next book project now, which I don't have a launch date for that yet. It's going to be a while.
Very exciting.
It is exciting. And then I have a Facebook group called Handmade Skincare Enthusiasts. It's a free group. We talk all about DIY skincare stuff. I just did a little Facebook challenge in there, so I like to have educational events in there every now and then. And it's close to 3,000 people now. It's really fun. So
that's amazing. We'll have to I'll make sure all those links are in the show notes too. So if people go to my website, thetinyfitdiva.com, and check out the podcast link, they can get all the links to your websites and your Facebook group and everything.
Great.
Thank you so much. I learned a lot. I hope everyone else did too. It was really enjoyable. I love it when it's information that you can just take and implement. So thank you so much for being here.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having me.